Progressive educators directly inspire, promote, and demand that students engage in hate crimes and racial bigotry. And they have the nerve to justify it all because of, hate crimes and racial bigotry. I'm Dr. Duke, and this is The Dr. Duke Show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Dr. Duke Show, the only program that keeps you educated on the craziness impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses around the world. Katie is not with us today. It's Christmas, so she's at the local mall helping usher snot-nosed little kids to Santa Claus's lap. Today we're discussing a popular high school textbook that trashes Republican presidents while praising Democrat leaders. Isn't that all of them? Plus, Parents Magazine goes full woke, featuring the photo of a 4-year-old boy holding a sign saying, quote, "Some men have periods too," unquote. But we start at Middleton High School in Wisconsin, where a student recently compared the unfair advantages of white men and people of color. Before we kick things off, quick question. Could you feed yourself for several weeks with the food you have at home if there were some sort of an emergency? If not, it's time to build an emergency food supply. It's as important as every other safeguard you use to protect your family. I trust the people at My Patriot Supply, and you really ought to as well. A 2-week food kit gets you started in this program. This week, you will save $70 when you visit preparewithduke.com. Preparewithduke.com. These kits include meals that last up to 25 years in storage and are guaranteed to arrive at your door in just 2 days. Go to preparewithduke.com right now and save $70 on your order. Again, I have tasted these on a full stomach and they weren't bad. Imagine how great they're going to taste if your kids are starving. All right, take a look at this picture. This is from a Middleton, Wisconsin high school, and I'm going to let you focus on this for a second. This has become a new educational fad, even at the university. I walk into university classrooms now, and the education students have literally put posters that look just like this all around the room. This is what's considered intellectual education now in high schools and colleges. Having adults, or almost adult people, sit down with pens and markers and draw pictures that we post on the blackboard. On the left there, you have a smiling figure, and on the right, you have an angry one. And here is what the comparison is. It's titled Unfair Advantages. That's the whole purpose of the picture of the poster. Unfair advantages. The person on the left, the smiling, happy one, is a person of color. Around the face of the person of color, who looks awfully pasty white to me, but nevertheless, low social status, low pay, but they're willing to help out. They smile. They're trying hard in the workplace, and they're passionate. Now you go over to the scowling stick figure drawing, who represents the white male. And here's what they say about the white male. The white male has many opportunities and an angry face, not nice, not caring, and does not try. What differentiates this from a swastika, or the drawing of a noose, or scrawling some racial slur on a blackboard? All of those things would be dealt with immediately. There would be meetings, and there would be counseling sessions, and there would be condemnations both inside and outside the school of this kind of racial graffito, these kinds of threatening racial symbols. How is this any different? What a complete straw man you've done. You have drawn 2 pictures, and you've posted on the board for everybody to see, and the pictures reinforce racial stereotypes. This is pure racism, that the person of color is always going to be a low-status person. How is that not racist against black people? How is that the assumption that the person of color is always going to have a low social status, that they're never going to make any money, that they're always willing to help out, that they're always smiling, that they try hard in the workplace? Look, positive stereotypes are stereotypes. I'm not even getting yet to the negative, nasty racial portrayal of whites. I'm simply pointing out, based on their own liberal values, they're engaging in stereotyping. They are absolutely scapegoating. They are projecting things collectively on people on the basis of their skin. Everything the progressive left says you shouldn't do, they're doing before you even get to the nakedly racist portrayal of the white male. The white male who has overwhelming opportunities. If that's true, why are most of homeless people in America are white? Most of Americans living below the poverty line are white. Most Americans on health and benefits and food stamps are white Americans. How is it possible that these white people have many opportunities. Where does the angry face come from? They're not nice. They're not caring. They do not try. This is a hate crime. If you had drawn something similar to this about any other ethnicity, race, or sexuality, or gender, you would be investigated for propagating hate. But rather than investigating you, they are putting the poster up so that everyone can see it. The kid is getting grades for drawing garbage like this. Faculty and administrators are feeding this kind of racist junk to children who are then turning it into art, which is not only not racist according to the school, it satisfies a requirement. They get a grade, they get a good mark, and they get the school and the teacher's approval for engaging in this kind of racial bigotry. It's unacceptable. And we move from public schools teaching kids to be racial hate crime instigators. Now you have a situation where Parents Magazine, the exploitation of little kids that we just mentioned to you. Take a look at that little boy. And this is almost like a human shield thing for LGBTQ propaganda, right? Here's a little boy, Stockholm Syndrome, right, who's holding a placard that I'm pretty sure he can't even read, right? And that little sign says, "Some men have periods too. If I can get it, so can you." And what I think is really interesting about this on a number of levels, first of all, this is child exploitation. There is no if, and, or but about it. You are propagandizing through your little child who doesn't even know what he's doing. And if you go back to the sign for a moment, this puzzles me. Well, why is it only some men who have periods? If you're foolish enough to believe, Mom, that men have periods, then by arguing only some men have them, aren't you excluding men? Aren't you, by definition, being a bigot against your own cause? Your sign is stupid. If you're going to go that route, Mom, then all men must have them. But you know why you don't put that, Mom? Because you know that not only do not all men have periods, no men have them. And so the sign is dishonest based on your own values. And this Parents Magazine is a piece of work. Parents Magazine published this photo exploiting a 4-year-old boy named Eli, his parents making him push an anti-science, gender-fluid narrative on Instagram. Using your kids on Instagram, outstanding. I was amazed that the comments in this very liberal magazine were blasting these parents, were really coming after them for this exploitation. For a moment, it will actually restore your faith in humanity. Among some of the comments include the following: OMG, oh my God, leave kids out of it. Let them be kids. They don't even teach about menstrual cycles until 5th grade. This is a sad and pathetic attempt on the mother's part to exploit her child and to get a liberal pat on the back. We're using children now literally as human shields to promote a LGBTQ agenda, particularly a gender agenda, a transgender agenda. What we're doing here is, because you can't argue with the children, right? When little 4- and 5-year-olds come back from preschool and tell you, "Mommy, mommy, mommy, there's no such thing as gender," that little innocent doesn't know what he's talking about. He's just repeating what a parent has said. But as a parent, how do you tell that kid he's wrong? How do you tell these brainwashed, indoctrinated little kids when they lecture you about your discriminatory heteronormativity, right? Your refusal to be bigendered or trigendered or quadgendered. How do you tell the little ones, right? So when the little ones have been trained to do that and they come home, all Mom and Dad can say is, aw, right? And they capitalize on this indoctrination by Instagramming it to show how woke they are as parents. This is wrong on so many levels. Again, just ask yourself, if little kids were being recruited to do things like this for conservative causes, right? Can you imagine? If that little kid held a sign saying, "Only girls can menstruate," right? If he had a little sign that said that, how quick would the progressives how many of them would call Child Protective Services to come after this kid and this family? How many of this would see it as a sign of hatred and intolerance? How many would scream that that little child is being indoctrinated into heteronormativity, into anti-homosexual, anti-LGBTQ values? This would be a hate crime. The parents would be under extreme scrutiny, and Parents Magazine would be the first to condemn it. It is hypocrisy of the highest order, and it does make you wonder, using your kids this way, should somebody call Child Protective Services? And moving into our final story to show you what a cluster of stories we've got here. The exploitation of children, turning kids into advocacy for racial hate crimes, exploiting little baby boys as we saw before, and now this one. There's a new popular high school textbook that completely writes off conservatives. 10 years ago, reading history texts, you would have seen a very subtle shift to the left. You would see children, including high school kids, being manipulated into left-wing ways of seeing things. Now, 10 years later, thanks to the Common Core era, you have full-blown propaganda in these textbooks. The book in question is a book called The American Pageant. Now, it has a regular edition. This picture happens to be the AP edition for advanced placement. And what it has to say about American history and American culture and American values is shocking. Most parents of high school juniors and seniors are likely to have seen this book, the book called The American Pageant, come home in their child's backpacks. The American Pageant is among the most widely used textbooks in AP U.S. history courses. It was first published in 1956 and has been updated, though certainly not improved, across 17 editions since the 1950s. It's been read by tens of millions of students. It's one of the most influential history books on the market today. It's also a successor in its revised form to the communist Howard Zinn's A People's History of the United States. If you think Howard Zinn, his history books, which were the mainstream for 20, 30 years in American schools, you think they're prejudiced against Americans, American values, traditional American values, then this book really puts it to shame. Quote, New York City real estate mogul and reality television personality Donald J. Trump bullied, belittled, and bamboozled 16 rivals to snag some and hijack the Republican nomination. That's literally what they said. One passage about the 2016 presidential election begins, quote, Trump's legions of critics, including many Republican grandees, considered the brash billionaire a swaggering colossus of ignorance, vanity, and vulgarity, unquote. American Pageant, in its current edition, devotes almost twice as much space to liberal politicians as to their conservative counterparts, breaking down to an average of 124 pages per liberal politician to less than 80 for the conservative ones, or the so-called Republicans. For instance, Franklin Delano Roosevelt garners a staggering 299 mentions in the book. Nixon, who is the most popular conservative in terms of page numbers, is only popular because most of that time is spent detailing Watergate. This is the next iteration of what we've been talking about for a long time. The mask is off. They're not going to pretend back, just like with the abortion issue. Remember 10 years ago when even the Democrats decried abortion? It needed to be legal but rare, right? We need to acknowledge that it's a painful, dangerous thing, but we have to allow it for certain medical and health conditions. And now the mask is off the progressive left. Abortion for all time, from the moment the child is conceived all the way through childbirth, just because it's the same thing with the educational textbooks now. What used to be 10 years ago subtle and a pretend balance now is full-bore, naked prejudice in favor of liberal progressive ideas, historical events, and historical narratives. And this is not just an AP, too, by the way. This ethos of this textbook permeates every aspect of your kids' history lessons. History is the spear point, not science, not math, history, not even reading. History is the point of the spear at which they're going to get your kids to unmake their own heritage, to despise their own country, to reject free markets, to abandon independence and liberty. They start young, and by the time they get to high school, this is the crap they're dealing with. And that'll do. If you like the show, please consider supporting it. And maybe Katie wouldn't have to work as an elf in the mall. Consider supporting the show by signing up for our Patriot Club. Just $25 a month keeps us going. It really does. And it gets you goodies like this 2 or 3 times a year. The limited edition tumbler and stress ball, both with the Dr. Duke Show logos. Visit drdukeshow.com to get started. And finally, I'd like to thank My Patriot Supply for sponsoring today's program. If you have a business, large or small, we'd love to partner with you. We have a good audience and we have a very committed audience. So visit freedomproject.com/advertise, freedomproject.com/advertise if you'd like to see yourself advertised on this program. We could even make Katie your mascot if we can get her out of that elf costume. For Freedom Project, I'm Dr. Duke. Until next time, you stay educated, my friends.